Good morning, good afternoon, or even good evening to everyone. And we are continuing our lecture on affective assessment. And we now go to the affective assessment tools. And let us begin to discuss this, okay? Measurement of affective traits is more challenging compared to measuring cognitive and psychomotor dimension of learning. It can be direct or indirect. The direct assessment of affective learning outcomes is more attainable at the lower levels in the affective learning. Taxonomy of Cratwell and others. Teachers, for example, can take attendance to measure pupils' willingness to receive information. Teachers may consider the number of times the pupil raised his or her hand to answer or ask questions, or the number completed assignments and projects. These are sample evidence at responding level of the affective domain. However, in this age of globalization where character and morals of citizens are becoming more critical, educators are giving more attention to higher levels of affective taxonomy. These higher affective levels are less amenable to direct measurement because it's very hard to observe them. They are actually internal states that exist in the mind and thoughts of the learners. Because of this, indirect measurement are thought to be less reliable. Nevertheless, researchers and educationalists are in continuing effort to overcome these perceived difficulties. The information generated from the use of indirect assessment of affective learning outcomes can come from different sources, no? The student themselves, the teachers, the peers, I think even parents, no? From their parents. A variety of methods for indirectly assessing intended affective learning outcome have been espoused. And some of the common assessment tools is self-report, inventory, questionnaire, opinionaire, semantic differential, observation, and interviews. So we go now to these assessment tools. The first affective assessment tool is the so-called self-report questionnaire. Self-report inventory or questionnaire is a type of assessment where the respondent, the students, no, is asked to answer a question about himself or herself, his behavior, emotions, feelings, or views. It serves many purposes to include diagnosis of students' mental and emotional state. This is also popular in pre-test and post-test design when teacher wants to assess change in attitude, interest, and motivation before and after the instructional period. This assessment tool is easy to administer to get immediate results and information directly from the person who is most knowledgeable about himself or herself. One limitation, of course, of the self-report questionnaire is the honesty of the person, the tendency not to write the truth of what one feels. Instead, the student may choose a response that will satisfy the teacher rather than actually writing the truth. The respondent can also be personally biased because he or she is responding to a non-factual or subjective statement, no, from his or her point of view. To prevent this possibility, the one handling the assessment should try to ensure setting the right environment for getting the most truthful data. Self-report questionnaire or inventories use a variety of formats. The most popular or common is the Likert scale, the semantic differential, and the checklist. Let's look at the Likert scale. This measuring tool was invented by Rensis Likert, and it is a series of items or questions that require the respondent to select on a scale or rating reflecting the level of agreement or disagreement on items that are related to a particular topic, experience, or issue. The responses, both in the descriptive and numeric form, range from one extreme to another, such as strongly agree to strongly disagree, where 5 is the numerical value of the extreme positive feeling and 1 is the value of the extreme negative feeling. This kind of scaling give deeper insight into what the students are thinking and feeling. This is an example of a Likert scale. For example, you want to ask, to what extent do you agree or disagree with the following views about mathematics? Check the appropriate box. Number one, mathematics is the study of formula, rules, and procedures in solving problems. So the student will choose, or the respondent will choose only one option. If he strongly agree or she strongly agree with a statement, he will say 5. If agree only 4, slightly agree 3, disagree 2, and strongly disagree is 1. And that will be true for the other sentences. For example, the statement 4, mathematics is logic and reasoning. So the student are requested to answer or to click one answer only. There are other scale levels and numeric scale values such as always, almost always, sometimes, rarely, and never. It can also be the option, no? The third option would be always, very often, often, not very often, or never. Some guidelines might be of help, no, in creating your self-report assessment instrument. First, student statement should refer to the present condition. Okay, so because you want to assess the feeling now, I think it's good to have it in the present tense. Okay, the statement should be relevant to the psychological construct being measured. Of course, you should have only one topic, no? Because if there are so many topics, the student or the respondent might be confused. Avoid factual statement. Okay? What you should do is to write a descriptive subjective statement, not objective or not what I mean, not factual. Because if you say the birthday of Ferdinand Marcos is September 11, of course it would be true or false and not Likert scale. Statement should elicit a response that lends itself to one interpretation. Okay? Statement should be clear, simple, precise, and direct. Responses in the instrument should reflect gradation. Use vocabulary appropriate for those that will respond. Of course, no? Do not, oftentimes, to make it sure, if you are looking on the, or wants to look on the community in general, besides the English, there is the translation of the Tagalog, no? For Tagalog. And then avoid double negative statements. The second self-report questionnaire is the so-called semantic differential. This is a widely used scale that employs ratings of concepts with contrary adjectives placed at opposite ends of the number scale. For example, assess how students feel about problem solving. Okay, difficult in the left side, difficult on the right side, easy. So they can just look at either five, one, two, interesting or boring, useful and useless. So in a sense, students or respondents can circle or can identify what is their preference. The checklist is the third self report inventory. It asks people to indicate whether they demonstrate a set of qualities or behaviors. It is a tool for identifying the presence or absence of a feeling, attitude, or behavior. The behaviors are checked that are checked will reflect what values and beliefs learner hold. For example, if you want to gauge or to understand your students about the reading class, you would just say you would list as many words or adjectives as you want, and then they will just click on it. For example, the reading class is or the performance, the alternative the assessment in learning to is. You will just put boring, exciting, fun, stimulating. So you will just, of course, you cannot say boring and at the same time fun. Okay, I hope you will be very careful what to think, no? I find English also like that. So checklist is just checking what is present and what is absent on a certain construct or variable. These are the common affective assessment tools, response options. Of course, the first is yes and no, but of course, we do not like that because uh, even if I tell you, do you love so and so? Sometimes it's very hard to say yes. Sometimes it's very hard to say no. Di ba? For example, someone is courting you now, no? Would you say if she asks you or if he asks you, do you love me? Sometimes it's very hard to say yes, di ba? It's very hard also to say no. Baka wala nang manligaw, no? So you just maybe have a 1 to 10, no? Like Likert scale or semantic differential, maybe undecided, strongly agree, or what. Okay? So that's the good thing about self, uh, what's that? Self response inventory or assessment. Now, there is the second assessment tool, the interview. This is an oral assessment of student learning conducted through spoken words and casual conversation. This assessment tool allows the teacher to collect and explore more in-depth information about the trait being assessed that cannot be captured by written instrument. No? Through this assessment technique, the teacher is able to probe responses that other forms of assessment tool cannot. The students can qualify and expand their previous answers, which can be vague at the earlier part of the conversation. It provides students opportunity to open their thoughts and ideas, and the teachers can be flexible to adapt questions as the need arises. Interview can provide a powerful moment of sharing, no? Where the learner is able to express face-to-face feelings and emotions. And of course, the prerequisite to achieve this kind of powerful moment of sharing is the trust, no? That is built up by the interviewer with the interviewee. interviewee. Interviews may be structured or unstructured. In the structured interview, there is a planned sequence of questions which lead to an open-ended discussions between the teacher and the student, either by group or individually. One limitation, though, of the structured interview is that predetermined questions tend to limit flexibility. Some important information about the learner on constructs you want to pursue may be missed, no? Or ignored because you can be controlled by you have a list of questions to follow. Unstructured interview will appear to be natural, no? And it create more conversational environment for sharing, wherein the teacher will be able to elicit more truthful information from students themselves. In many cases, even when trusts have been established, students may not be comfortable talking about values and feelings. And when she or he is in a one-to-one conversation, and this is true for young adolescents, no? Because they look at their image, they prioritize and emphasize what others will think of them. So I have here the what's that? The comparison of structured and unstructured interviews. And structured interviews normally yan for job candidates. No, when you were interviewed at CCT, it's more of structured because the question are all the same. The unstructured interviews, it dive into deeper discussions and it adapt to the topics that the students want. Okay. Follow-up questions because in interview, uh, even if it is structured and unstructured, you need to have follow-up questions. And I think some of the good follow-up questions or what's that in creating follow-up questions are the compare and contrast questions, asking for example, asking for meaning, providing evidence, asking for detail, and reflecting back to understanding or to check understanding. And these are the structured. We have the structured interview, we have the semi-structured interview, and then we also have a non-directive in-depth interview, which means anything goes, no, for the student. A group interview may work better on older students to elicit more authentic information. Younger children can be more candid and honest with their answers when whether individually no, or in a group. Nevertheless, in whatever situation, interview is considered an effective tool for assessment, no, affective assessment. Imagine yourself as a student and you experience a teacher spending time talking to you about how you are doing in the subject, no? So how do you feel? So it's really a good assessment tool. Questions like how did you do on the assignment I gave you will make a great deal on students' feelings. In other words, interview may go beyond cognitive improvement. Spoken words will motivate students to learn. And these are the steps, no, to conduct an interview. Of course, you select the assessment objective, maybe because he's always late in the class or is always absent. So you want to know his whether he has motivation or motivated to finish his schooling. And then list the oral questions in sequence, no? Considering the objective that you have. Make a report sheet or any form to record the responses, then conduct the interview. And it's good also to be observant that you also record the non-verbal behavior, even the respect, no? Yung the form of words, the respect that the students are giving. Uh, And this is one style of a form, no, for structured interview. How satisfied were you with the outcome? Okay, for example, you are asking about the baking of some food or bread and other ones, and then you want to explore more, no? And then also this is one. And how do you react to criticism? Of course, there is a guide there. Criticism is a means to improvement, but negative, I don't like criticism. So these are sample of structured interview format. The third assessment tool for affective domain is the so-called journals or student journals. This is an effective tool that can be used in assessing and monitoring student thinking and attitudes. Journal writing gives students guided opportunities to think aloud through writing. And it is a special form of documenting their personal experiences and thoughts. It's their own reflection. A student who encountered a difficult problem and is asked to write about the situation through a journal will reflect more deeply and critically. No? In journal writing, students are given opportunities to rewind previous experiences that may give them another point of view. And through journals, students are given the opportunity to open up also and express their thoughts and feelings. Diba? Uh, Not only your knowledge of the situation or the event, but how you feel about that. Journal writing opens the door for a one-to-one dialogue. Because if the teacher read something there, of course the teacher might be very, very interested to know the details of it. It creates an environment of partnership where teachers, students resolve issues and conflicts with understanding, of course, in a confidential manner. The written journal provides information for teachers to give feedback and ask questions. And while the primary intention of journal writing is to capture students' feelings and emotions, the discourse can lead to improving also the cognitive domain of learning. If you have a journal, even if that is only personal journal and not a student journal or educational journal, that improves how you describe yourself, no? And even how you write, okay, a sentence, whether in Tagalog or in English. And this is some of the guidelines in making student journals, no? For example, the purpose must be clear. Second, there should be a format to guide the students. Handwritten, type, full sentence, what else? What is the topic? Number three, how much do you want your students to write? Maybe one half page only, no, per week. How will the students be given feedback? Who will read the journal? The teacher only or other professors or even the parents? So, and how you will grade the journal. And this is an example of journal. The teacher makes a problem there, solve using estimation. There are 495, and then the students write cursively in the paper. And of course, you can have a formal journal like this one, word of the day, the meaning of the word, especially for English, no? For example, pride, okay, meaning, how many adjectives do you think you could describe an apple? Of course, those are weekly reflection, most enjoyable, most engaging, and then the fourth assessment tool is of course observation, involving looking for the presence or absence of some behaviors that you want. Okay, observation allows the teacher to assess student behavior in an actual teaching and learning process. No, this method is a rich source of clues that can be both obtrusive and unobtrusive measures of attitudes, beliefs, disposition, character, and others. For example, a PE teacher watches students play basketball in a school court. While the focus may be on the skill, no, like shooting, throwing the ball, dribbling, the teacher can also observe who play the clean game and who play on foul moves. Such behavior is indicative of more of important affective characteristics like honesty, patience, and dispositions, and which we aim to develop not only in PE but across the school curriculum. There is the so-called unstructured observation, which is open-ended with no formal recording, and unstructured observation data has been criticized now because it's very subjective. We also have the second kind of observation, structured. No? You need to prepare a checklist or rating form before the actual observation. The recording is straightforward as it just requires a check on the yes and no, no? And then other items. You know, when you do your practice teaching, and we will be asked to sit on maybe on a demo, on your teaching demo, there is a list given to us, okay, including your, what's that, your personality, the dress, even the hair, and how you talk, how your hands. So we'll just record it. It's an observation. And guidelines set a clear definition of the affective trait you want to observe. Prepare a checklist or rating scale. Three, consult with a colleague, no? Of course, whether that should be part of the behavior. And then have colleagues to work with you in the actual observation time. Because sometimes if only one is observing, the one observing might be biased, no? Um, you can see here sample observation schedule, no? Use of voice, audibility, enunciation, okay? Good, adequate. It's like a rubric as you see it. Structured observation is also called systematic observation, no? And the teacher formal classroom observation form, the one I told you, so professional knowledge and others, the one that is observing you list a lot of things, no, because of this structured observation tool. This is also an example. Now, in the Department of Education, you all have grades. Now we all have grades cards, no, Form 138. And these traits are the depth ed affective goals: honesty, courtesy, helpfulness and cooperation, resourcefulness and creativity, consideration for others, sportsmanship, obedience, self-reliance, industry, cleanliness, and orderliness. Maybe you are asking, how did my teachers graded me in these traits? No, maybe they just observe you. Okay, they did not use any self-report questionnaire, or checklist. Now, for your assignment, choose either a Likert scale or a structured interview tool. Okay, you will create an affective assessment tool, and it's either a Likert scale or it's either a structured interview. If you choose the Likert scale, I want you to choose an affective goal to assess. Of course, from the depth ed affective goals, no? And then create at least 5 statements, no? And then in front of the 5 statements, write options for respondents to choose. Example, strongly agree, blah, 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 and up to strongly disagree. If it is a structured interview tool that you will use, choose an affective goal, no? And then create 5 interview questions also. Along with that, make an interview report sheet, no? Of course, in the left side, the list of questions, and then in the space on the right side, where you can write the response, the questions, and other things. Okay? So that's all for the affective assessment tools. Thank you for listening, and God bless you all.